Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you on this October 20th, 2025. I got all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work coming to you from my mobile studio set up here in Florida. We've got a ton to get into to start the week off. We will have updates on Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni as depositions are finalized, who was deposed and who wasn't, why Ryan Reynolds did not get deposed. We'll talk about that. Plus, they've come to an agreement as to how they will release the bombshell evidence. Well, we'll be the judge of that regarding the Steve Sarowitz phone call. We'll dive into all of those updates. Plus, we've got Laura Owens trying to weasel her way out of attending her own domestic restraining order trial, which is set to begin this week and end this week. Will she drop it today? Who knows? We'll find out. So much to cross our fingers for. We'll have to see. I wanted to go to trial, but we'll talk more about that. And we've also got the No Kings rally, which was pretty much peaceful, about as good as it could have gone. You know, I was worried about all of the scenarios that could have been very, very bad. And we'll, of course, share the wild AI video posted by our president. And is this grounds for a 25th Amendment? We're going to get into it. I mean, tell you what, if my mom posted that, I would have to unfriend my mom. But you can't unfriend your president. We've tried. We'll get into all these stories and more. It starts right now on The Rush. Well, let's get into the Blake Lively update. This is a big one happening right now. This is a letter. The judge basically said, you guys need to figure out how you're going to unseal these documents, because apparently they couldn't upload an audio file through the court system. You know, it's archaic. So they had to come up with a solution. What would that solution be? Well, this is what they wrote. Dear Judge Lyman, in accordance with Your Honor's October 15th order, plaintiff Blake Lively and defendants Wayfarer Studios, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Sarowitz, and all, write to inform the court of their efforts to publicly release the audio file submitted in support of Miss Lively's motion for fees and damages under California Civil Code, Section 47.1. The parties have conferred and agreed to provide the clerk's office with copies of the physical audio recording in a CD format, which will then be distributed to or copied for the public upon the clerk's office receiving such request. Counsel for the parties confirmed that the clerk's office is amenable to the foregoing approach, which the parties agree provides public access to the audio file in lieu of the file being filed on the public docket, which the court's docket cannot accommodate from a technical standpoint. Counsel has received limited outreach for the audio file to date and intends to provide a sufficient number of copies to accommodate any anticipated request to the clerk's office, and will also provide additional copies as needed. All right, folks, there it is. We got a full-blown mixtape coming out. That's what this is. I mean, short of sending us a cassette deck, this is quite the I mean, come on, what year is it? So, I mean, how do they burn CDs? You put a gun to my head. I couldn't tell you how to burn CDs. Side note, I remember in the early 2000s, we had a buddy who had a CD burner. The dude would charge like $10 per CD, to put whatever songs you wanted on there. This was before LimeWire. This is like the Napster days, right? And all I know is my CD, of course, included Baby Got Back, because that was, of course, a hit song of the early 2000s, maybe even earlier. Anyway, the point is, who's got this? No one even has a CD-ROM on their computer. Can somebody dust off their Walkman so we can listen to this audio recording? My guess is that there will be people running to the court to get this audio recording, and eventually it'll be uploaded to a YouTube link or, Dropbox or something like that. But why the hard copy? Again, whatever. Do what you got to do as long as it gets out there. But people are kind of fed up over this, Blake Lively's side said she had all this damning info. There's, caught on tape illegal recording that shows them that they were, and it's like, all right, fine. I don't care if it's on a CD. I don't care if you want to put it on vinyl. We're going to listen to it, by golly. And then People magazine over the weekend came up with this story. Blake Lively's co-star Jenny Slate, Colleen Hoover, and more deposed in Justin Baldoni case, but Ryan Reynolds was not. Depots concluded in the It Ends With Us legal battle as Lively and Baldoni head toward March 2026 trial. So I guess we're not going to get Taylor Swift. Oh, she weaseled her way out of that one. She's busy loving her life. and, releasing her albums, and didn't have time to tell us about that, extortion talk. But either way, Lively herself sat for a deposition along with several close members of her cast, including from her professional circle, including longtime publicist Leslie Sloan, her talent agent Warren Zavala, and makeup artist Vivian Baker. From all that we've seen, there is no tea. There's just no tea yet. But it is interesting from a strategy standpoint why Ryan Reynolds stayed off the stand. And here's what Not Actually Golden has to say about the strategy.
Maybe it's better for Blake Lively to, look like this hurt her alone. Maybe it's better in front of a jury to say, no, it's not like, oh, I have this great supportive husband who's going to testify for me. Maybe it's better to have him sitting in the gallery and look like he's, really going through it, watching her talk. But this is her story about her pain, and she's going to tell it. That could be a strategy. And it could be a strategy that works. There's also a really big con with Ryan, which is that all of the things that were in Wayfarer's case that got dismissed, and the things about him, some of those things could be brought up on cross-examination as credibility issues. And so if Ryan Reynolds got up there to testify and he gave a compelling testimony about what this did to his wife and how awful this was and what a terrible person Baldoni was, the very first thing that Wayfarer is going to ask on cross-examination is, why the fuck did you let her keep going there?
There it is. And also, they're going to ask him, did she text you that she was having these issues? That's the big one for me, knowing that your spouse would always know if you're dealing with an asshole at work. Always. And so my guess is they don't have any of that information, so I put him on the stand. I don't think a jury is going to, I don't think this is going to make Blake Lively look any better, but I do think there is a strategy there for her to not have the support of him. So interesting. I mean, they're setting the deck for the trial now. It's only a few months away. All of the evidence gathering is coming to a close. I know it feels like forever, and it has been forever. And as we continue to cross our T's and dot our I's with the case, there's a lot of burnout and fatigue. But when it goes to trial, we're going to see all of these depositions and everything put together, what the strategies are. If it goes to trial, there is still always a chance it will settle. But at this point, I told my audience, you get me to 100,000 subscribers and we will be at the trial. And I'm there. You guys did more than 100,000. You got me over 140,000. So we've got a lot of trials coming up in 2026. We've got Blake Lively. I'll be strapping Starlink to my forehead to be there for you. And we've also got Laura Owens. She's actually got a trial this week. Now I'm, a witness for the state of Arizona where she's being charged with 7 felonies. But this week, she's supposed to go to a trial because she's trying to extend a domestic violent restraining order she has against Mike Maricini, which is absolutely wild. She did mobster-like activities last week as she threw a former friend completely under the bus, planting what I believe to be false information about her former friend, all to damage her character. And in my opinion, as witness intimidation, because the friend flipped on her and realized, hey, I've been on the wrong side of the story. Maybe Laura was, everything she told me, maybe it wasn't true. And, have you ever heard of a trial where you didn't even have the person didn't even have a friend supporting them? That's where we are. Well, Laura, now she wanted to travel, I guess, by Zoom, right? She loves Zoom lawsuits. She doesn't like to be there in person. And Mike Maricini with his lawyers, right? He had Rachel Juarez, Emmy-winning. Congratulations to Rachel, and of course the great tilted boner himself. They're just Omar, right? They're fantastic. I say boner, tilted lawyer, great guy, love him. They are great lawyers. They're all ready to be in San Francisco for this trial. And then Laura's like, you know what? I'm actually not feeling too well. So Laura requested, I guess, an extension, and they said no. And then she said, please. I mean, when you ask pretty please, can we declaration of Laura Owens in support of expedited request for reconsideration of motion to continue based on urgent health concerns and request for a ruling on the papers. I was told the urgent health concern is that she's got a case of being full of shit. That's what I was told. I'm kidding. So again, will the judge say, give an extension or not? I mean, it sounds to me as if this judge is just fed up. Now, the question is, if the judge denies this, which I think we might find out today, I don't think we already know what the judge has said, but if the judge denies this, will Laura then say, you know what, I'm gonna cancel the request? Now, to be quite honest, if Laura is so easily willing to drop her extended restraining order, then she just really didn't need it that bad. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see if Laura can keep herself out of prison. That's the main goal. It used to be to have a thriving podcast, but now Laura's only goal is, can I keep myself out of prison? Well, I'll tell you who has kept themselves out of prison. George Santos. You like that transition? George Santos was in jail for some pretty big crimes, and now he thanks Donald Trump for releasing him. He was just released from prison. He wasn't there that long. George Santos told CNN Sunday morning he learned about his sentence being commuted while still behind bars, saying other inmates saw it on TV before he did. I have to say, if I were behind bars serving a lengthy sentence, that would be pretty cool to find out from other people on TV, like, hey, you're out, you're free. And be like, can I get lunch first? I'm hungry. Can we do some commissary beans or whatever they ate? So he says it was humbling to speak with a sitting president. That's not, the president was very kind, Santos said. It was humbling to speak with a sitting president. That's not something that happens where I come from. He added he had no expectations of a commutation and only found out when fellow inmates called him over after seeing the news on a prison TV. I just been released from 41 days in isolation for no valid reason. I was shocked when I found out. My family confirmed it after I called them. Listen, first of all, I think it's crazy he had 41 days in isolation, if that's true. But either way, I mean, it's absolutely wild. The guy admitted to the crimes. He literally had many crimes. He wasn't who people thought he was, and I guess we're just supposed to be okay with it. Trump made this long statement about it, and there's your law and order president disagreeing with the law and order that put this guy behind bars. And I guess it was whataboutism. He was saying, well, there's a Democratic senator who I guess had stolen valor. I don't even think that's true. But by the way, how rich of Donald Trump for accusing a Democratic senator of not being a proud Vietnam veteran, when Donald Trump had several occasions where he faked illness in order to dodge getting drafted in the Vietnam War. As someone whose father fought in the Vietnam War, I find that despicable. But yet, in some crazy way, there's a bunch of veterans that love Donald Trump, even though he dodged serving his country. I don't know. I mean, make it make sense. So Santos pleaded guilty earlier this year to stealing donors' identities and funneling fraudulent contributions into his campaign. Said he now plans to dedicate himself to prison reform, claiming he was dehumanized by prison officials. Well, that's a different story, whether that's true or not. I'm all for prison reform. Trust me, it should not be a for-profit system that, prisons, we have one of the worst systems in the world with regard to percentage of our population behind bars. I agree with him there. But look, we have a lot to get into regarding this past weekend's No Kings protest. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to share the updates of all of the peaceful protests going on around the country. That's right, peaceful protests. I mean, there might have been a couple issues here or there, but millions of people showed up to express their First Amendment right to stand loud and proud, dissenting from the government, a government that many people believe has crippled the First Amendment, due process, and so many other fabrics of the Constitution. As Trump, prints merchandise hats preparing for his third presidential term in 2028, I don't think it will really happen. But again, some people, are wearing those 2028 hats. As that's happening, the people are really taking to the street. And the sort of framing that the president has wanted to give is that this is a pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist, pro-whatever crap, pro-Marxist. They just throw these, bingo terms out at people. But the truth is, it was everything from veterans to people in their 90s to, people of all ages and sizes. And from what I've heard from people that attended these No Kings protests, they were happy to embrace the America that they believe in, not the one that currently is, tearing apart the fabric of our country. Whether it was Boston or Washington, Portland, Chicago, really every major city across the country, there were thousands of unique protests that happened over the weekend. My fear was that some of these would turn violent, and then the military would use that as justification to come into the different cities with force. And it appears as though that hasn't happened. The New York Police Department posted that literally millions of people attended the New York City rally, and there were 0 arrests, which is absolutely amazing. Now, what's interesting with the No Kings rally is it's so precise and it makes sense. They don't want a president who's going to rule with executive authority and not invite the other branches of government, have checks and balances and things like that. And you're hearing from people, well, Biden was more like a king because he anointed Kamala to run in the office and versus having a primary, which again, I understand that unique situation, which let down those that wanted to vote for someone other than Trump because it gave a small window to choose who, and rather than have a primary, they chose Kamala. But don't forget, then there was an election where people were allowed to voice their opinion through their vote. So I reject that Biden was a dictator. He actually very much worked across the aisle, and plenty of the different bills that were passed benefited Republican states and more so than Democrat. But who even has to speak in those terms, Republican versus Democrat? We're all American citizens, and yet Trump wants to pit us against each other. I mean, you probably have seen this video. Trump posts wild artificial intelligence video showing him flying a fighter jet dropping sewage on the No Kings protester. That's right. It's insane. And it's my opinion that this, if nothing else, should be the thing that disqualifies our president from being president of the United States of America. How much are we willing to accept? And people say, oh, it's just a joke. Are you kidding me? The president, first of all, flying a military plane, he dodged being in the military. And now he's singing Danger Zone from Top Gun. This doesn't do justice to Tom Cruise, okay? But not to mention, how do you get a crown on in one of those little planes? Either way, the video itself is atrocious. You've probably seen it. I'll play it as I talk over it here, but it's wild. It's absolute. I mean, we already expect there to be crazy things. The plane itself says King Trump on it, and then it's him flying over the protests and then manually dumping bomb loads of poop onto an actual influencer named Harry Sisson. We'll get to his response in a second. Now, whether it's AI or not, this is the type of insane rhetoric coming from the president. And I do believe that, they say the fish rots from the head. I do believe that society plays to the lowest common denominator when it comes to just real. I mean, this is, there's people from other countries going, what the hell is going on there? We feel so bad for everybody that we're being torn apart. I was talking to a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while here on this trip that I'm on. And he was like, man, it's crazy. Like people that, in my family that I've loved and respected, they are so blinded by what's going on right now. And I'm reminded because I do think, and I do wonder, like, am I on the wrong side of this? Every once in a while when you're accused of having Trump derangement syndrome or something crazy, then you remember, no, millions of people are out there going, gosh, we didn't know it could get this bad. And it has. And now we've got, young influencers with videos of them having sewage dumped on them. It's just insane. Listen, if any of my family or friends posted this online, I would have to unfollow them because I wouldn't want this sort of filth in my life. And yet we sort of have to accept it because it's from our president. And how about all these Republicans in leadership position? They're all waiting for the opportune moment to really strike against Trump. None of them want him, including his own vice president, J.D. Vance. I mean, everybody privately says we need Marco Rubio. Everyone says we need to get him out of office. They've said that in the past, and now they're sort of bending the knee, spineless bitches. Harry Sisson, who is the young Democrat who was featured in this AI video, said, can a reporter please ask Trump why he posted an AI video of himself dropping poop on me from a fighter jet? That would be great. Thanks. And then, I mean, it's like, yeah, can we get comment on that? Well, here is Mike Johnson's response to this violent rhetoric that only bad people are attending these rallies, which, of course, isn't further from the truth.
Part of it.
We'll get to the shutdown, but just on this
notion that these are hate America rallies. And you not only talked about anarchists, Antifa advocates, pro-Hamas wing, and you said this is the modern Democratic Party. But I remember not that long ago what you said after the murder of Charlie Kirk, when you said that we should view fellow Americans not as our enemies, but as our fellow countrymen.
Yeah, I've never called anybody an enemy, but we call out...
Hate America rally or, Antifa, pro-Hamas, those are enemies.
Well, there were a lot of hateful messages yesterday. I mean, we have video and photos of pretty violent rhetoric, calling out the president, saying fascists must die and all the rest. I mean, I don't think that's loving speech. I don't think that's friendly speech. And I don't think it's pro-American to say those kinds of things.
So, I mean, what does he expect? What is there? Dozens of millions of people to attend these rallies, and you expect that there aren't going to be one or two posters that are unbecoming, that don't live up to the moral fiber that you want from the Republican Party? I mean, look, the country's big enough and social media is prevalent enough that if you want to find ammunition for your side online, you can find it. There'll be somebody that fights somebody. There's always going to be that case. But the majority of people were peaceful. The majority of people were out there, in tears, supporting a version of democracy they believe in. They don't feel represented from their political leaders right now. And for Mike Johnson to say, no, this confirms it. The whole party's, they're all terrorists. They can call people terrorists, but then what happens to folks like me? What happens to comedians that aren't on the right political aisle? They call them terrorists, and then they don't get due process because we don't treat terrorists with due process. And you start to look at the way that they use these words to strip away the rights and really to dehumanize half the country, if not more, that didn't vote for this.
So it's not about the people, it's about the message, it's about the ideology. And I will stand here every Sunday and talk with you about the dangers of Marxism and socialism and how it's led to the literal death of tens of millions of people in the 20th century alone. It is a dangerous ideology, and it is anti-American. It goes against everything that we stand for.
Which isn't true, of course. Democratic socialism is about having democracy, but also realizing that some people benefit from it better than others, and maybe they're taxed at a higher rate, and that's what helps pay for the fire stations and the roads and the bridges and the school systems. And we have to understand what social projects are, and that we live in a country where you do get a mailbox that goes through a social program of the U.S. mail. You do get programs that provide water and all the other things that we take for granted that exist because of our tax dollars. So this idea that he has that people are going to die if they go with Democratic policies is absolutely wild, as these folks in leadership continue to do tax cuts for the ultra wealthy. I mean, it's insane, right, folks? Anyone's grocery prices cheaper? I mean, how long does this administration have to be in office before people realize their avocados aren't going to get any cheaper? Here we have an interesting guest on Joe Rogan's podcast, Mariana Van Zeller. She actually challenges Joe Rogan to step up and interview Gavin Newsom because he keeps talking so much trash about him. She says, hey, you should have a conversation. But here she is explaining how immigrants are being used in this culture war that's leading to what apparently has been very easy to divide us on.
Immigrants are being used as political pawns, right? As
That's
we know,
true.
from both sides, by
That's
the way.
true.
Both sides.
100%. We both agree with that.
And these are human beings. And a lot of times the people that are traumatized are American citizens. They are the kids. They're pulling away their family members, their mothers, their fathers. And it's American kids who are being traumatized.
It's also heartless. And you're showing to the world that you don't care, that you just want to achieve a result, and you want to achieve a result that is going to leave a terrible feeling for anybody with a heart that looks at that story in that case. And then they're going to associate the United States government more and more with tyranny.
So what's the solution? Now, people will say, yeah, but Joe Rogan voted for this. He endorsed this. And it's like, at this point, who cares? What do we do moving forward? If Joe wants to jump side, he actually interviewed a James Tallarico, a Democrat from Texas, and says you should run for president. So it seems as though folks like Joe, when presented with the right option, can be sold on a different way. Here we have the same interview, this guest, Mariana, challenging Joe Rogan to invite Gavin Newsom on. And I share this with you guys because we did talk about this, how Gavin Newsom has been trolling Joe. Joe's very much aware of it.
California is brilliant with that. That's why they still haven't rebuilt a single house in the Pacific Palisades that burnt down. Not a single house 9 months later with some of the richest people in California.
Yeah.
Because nobody can get permits.
They're trying to make it easier to build.
Allegedly. How if you would have done it.
Have you had Gavin Newsom on your phone?
No, he's been taunting me, trying to get me to have him on. Why?
I don't know, because he's interesting. You think he's
interesting? He's interesting as like a sociology experiment. Like if you're a psychologist.
I mean, you talk to everyone, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know who I really love that you interviewed recently?
Who?
James Tallarico.
He's great.
Oh, look, they brought up James Tallarico. So Joe loves James Tallarico. Listen, I think you should interview Gavin Newsom. Continue having these conversations. If Joe wants to have a lot of this like California derangement syndrome, and if he wants to be critical of the Democrats, absolutely use that to continue having a conversation. So maybe they could find a way to win him back. Now, this is where Joe, you know, you get on 1 second you're like, oh, he's got a shot at kind of gaining back that humanity, and then here he is explaining that all of these protesters just got handed signs by George Soros.
Political thing, yeah. All those people that are protesting on the streets, 99% of them are losers. The other ones work for the Fed.
Yeah, is that true? They're losers? No, sorry, Joe. They're veterans. They've served and fought for our country. They are people in their... I literally saw kids all the way up to people that were in their 90s. They're not losers, Joe. You're wrong. You're wrong about that. And that's kind of despicable. You know, Joe like cosplays as like a veteran because he interviews people from the CIA and all of this. And but it's like, come on, Joe, you can't be sitting there smoking your cigar with your $100 million checks that you've got for just doing radio, and then call people that are willing to take time off from their busy days to go fight for what they believe. And you can't call them those types of names. That's bullshit, in my opinion. Well, here's a fun story to end on. Here's an ICE officer. It's not really fun. A DUI is not fun, but it is ironic that this ICE officer has now been arrested for DUI. Well, he tries to stop the arrest and by racially profiling the officers arresting him. Oh boy.
Okay. I'm trying to get home. I got my boys with me.
Who do you work for?
DHS.
Do you have your ID with you?
No, I don't.
Okay. But if I called them, they'd verify that you're a
100%,
department.
bro.
Okay. You don't have any type of credentials or anything that say you're DHS?
Not on me, no.
Okay. All right.
I only bring my weapon with me if I'm...
Okay, but you don't have any weapons on you right now?
No, I don't.
Okay, so what I want to do, I want to talk to you away from the kids. So I'm going to ask you to step out of the car, and we're going to walk back to the back of your car, okay?
Are you fucking serious right now? You know what? Call my supervisor.
Okay.
The sad thing for me is that not that people like this exist, but that his kids have a high risk of becoming pieces of shit themselves. And it's like, so this is the guy getting arrested for driving drunk with his children in the car, and he's going to be mad at the people that are arresting him as, you know, for just doing their job.
Do you want to do the exercises or no?
I'll do it. But you know what? What's homeboy doing down there? You know, guys, come on.
Make sure we all sit before we start off the water. We don't want to get hit. We don't want you to get hit. That's why we're trying to do the exercise. That way we can move on.
Are you Haitian?
That's nothing to do with my wrist, buddy.
My question was, are you Haitian?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where he's from. Okay. Look, man, I really need you to do the exercise. If you're a cop, whatever.
Yeah, I'm a fucking law enforcement,
okay,
dude.
Then stop talking and sit in the back of the car and stop.
So there it is. I mean, look, I don't feel good about sharing that, but like this is, we have this sort of like, I mean, maybe this is good for those that believe in local law enforcement to want to have them stand up against ICE coming into town and really just bullying them and whatnot. Wild stuff. Well, we have a ceasefire that's been broken. This is why I wasn't wanting to take the victory lap with the ceasefire between Israel and Palestine, or I should say Israel and Hamas. Israel launches airstrike in Gaza after 2 IDF soldiers killed in alleged Hamas attack. 44 Palestinians killed in strikes. Hamas denies involvement. Where do we go from here, folks? It's pretty wild out there. At the same time, we've got another warship. I don't even know what kind of ship was it that was blown up in the Caribbean Sea. So we might have a war starting in the. I mean, how do you even cover all of this? The details are murky. The U.S. has carried out its 7th military strike on a suspected drug smuggling vessel in the Caribbean. According to Pete Hegseth, 3 individuals aboard the vessel were killed in the strike, which he described as part of a broader military effort to treat drug cartels like the terrorists they are. And folks, I'm here to tell you that we live in a country of due process, and we shouldn't be accepting people's word for it that they're terrorists, because if they're willing to bomb so-called terrorists in the Caribbean and they're willing to call the Democratic Party terrorists, does it take an expert to put it all together? Not good for free speech, not good for living in a country where we want to live in peace and thrive and live in abundance and all those things. Hard to do that when people are living so on the edge. All right. Well, that's a Monday episode for you. So we'll be back this afternoon. We're here twice a day, every day. We'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.